everyone. You're watching A Billion Ideas with me, Maria Shakil, this Saturday, where we are taking up an important topic, which is the reproductive health of women and the laws governing them. After the Supreme Court of US stunning decision in June, which overturned Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 law, which guaranteed every American woman the right to an abortion, women across the country have been protesting, demanding the right to control their own bodies and reproductive health, a right they had been guaranteed for almost 50 years. The outrage comes due to the political power of the pro-life campaign in the US, which believes that the life of a child begins at the point of conception, equating an abortion at any stage to murder. 13 American states had triggered law in place which banned abortions the second Roe v. Wade was overturned. 14 states have now banned or restricted abortion access. 60% of the abortion clinics in 11 states have been shut down, forcing millions of women to travel for reproductive health care, which disproportionately affects minorities in these states. This has put the focus on India's abortion laws. While there is no ban in any part of the country, the law has been constantly evolving since the 1971 Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, bringing in provisions for sexual assault, mental illness, and fetal complications as well. Currently, the upper limit for an abortion is 24 weeks, but there's still a stigma over the marital status of a woman. On July 21st, in what will be seen as a historic judgment, the Apex Court overturned the Delhi High Court's order which denied a woman's right to an abortion because she was unmarried. The woman in question was in a consensual relationship and had moved the High Court when she was 23 weeks pregnant. The Supreme Court called the High Court order unduly restricted, emphasizing the term partner in the abortion law, saying the right extends to all women, including those who are unmarried. The top court has also said that forcing a woman to undergo an unwanted pregnancy goes against the spirit of the law. But this legal tussle from one court to another begs the question, does the abortion law in India also needs more reforms? Today we look at the situation both in the US and how our decisions of the courts here are far more progressive. Joining me on the show, Jessie Hill. She's a lawyer and law professor at a university in US. She's joining me from Ohio. We also have Mr. Michael Konidakis. He is lawyer and president of Ohio Right to Life. Jasmine George is a lawyer here in India, and Nidhi Jha is a gynecologist. I'm going to begin with you, Jessie, because in India there's a lot of discussion happening, particularly after what happened in the US with this reversing of the Roe v. Wade judgment. In March 2022, Kerala High Court in India permitted a termination of a pregnancy of 31 weeks of a 10-year-old rape survivor. There has been similar such verdicts that have come from other courts in India as well, which are certainly being seen as far more progressive. Do you think when a country gives access to abortion, it really means that women's rights are protected in that country?
Well, I think that that's an important part of protecting women's rights, certainly. And this is something actually that the dissenting justices in the US Supreme Court case that was recently decided, that they really emphasized was that the right to end a pregnancy is fundamentally not just about freedom, but also about equality, that it both, gives women an opportunity to chart their own life course and to make decisions about their own bodies. And so it is deeply intertwined with the ability of women to be equal citizens.
And would you say then that this judgment in US has actually taken the entire country back in time when US celebrates itself as a progressive democracy? America has actually gone back by perhaps 150 years or more with this kind of judgment where women do not have right over their own body, and which is certainly being seen as regressive.
Yeah, that's right. It certainly does feel like the US has taken a significant step backwards. I mean, in the US Supreme Court case, the court explicitly looked at the 19th century to determine what our rights should be today under the US Constitution, which, of course, it seems absurd to determine the rights of women compared to what they were in the 19th century. And I think it's interesting that you raised this case of the very young rape victim in India, because we had a very similar case here in the US where there was a 10-year-old rape victim that had to leave actually my home state of Ohio in order to access an abortion in an adjoining state, because Ohio banned abortion at 6 weeks of pregnancy. And so, I think that these sorts of cases really highlight the inhumanity of these laws. And it does suggest that India is more progressive on this issue than the US right now, and really is recognizing the importance of abortion rights for women's equality in a way that seems to have escaped many of the Supreme Court justices in the US.
Coming on this, Michael, and I would agree with Jesse on that point that US has gone back in time. One view certainly is that this is the failure of the system to act more democratically. And I've been looking at certain surveys which are suggesting that this, in which women in US are certainly talking about how their authority and right over their own bodies have been taken away.
So those are just tired talking points. I can tell you as a 23-year practicing attorney, which I am, that the Roe v. Wade decision and then the Dobbs decision that just came out overturning Roe did not make abortion illegal. In fact, abortion is legal in almost every state in the United States right now. About 10 states have prohibited it. Overturning Roe, what happened here in the United States, just lets each state set their own policy. It's called democracy. So in Ohio, we elect our governor, we elect our members of our government, and we can sit down and set our own policy. If states like New York and California want to allow abortion during the 9th month of pregnancy, they can. And in fact, they do. Right now in the state of New York, a woman can have an abortion who's 9 months pregnancy. That's horrific, and that's scary and sad. And we're not going to do that here in the Great Buckeye State. We're going to sit down because overturning Roe just lets us decide. So instead of having a federal law, each state gets to set their own policy. And in Ohio, we're going to be better than New York.
But Michael, isn't it tragic and even cruel?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it makes a woman a more woman because she can abort her child. I don't know where this warped sense of feminism comes from, but in the country of India, you guys, the people of India can set their own policies. And who are Americans to tell Indians what to do? And who are residents of India to tell America what to do? We're our own independent country, as you guys are. So you can do what you think's best in India, and we'll do what we think's best in the United States. But make no mistake, overturning Roe v. Wade does not make abortion illegal, but we just get to decide as people. Instead of unelected judges on the court, we, the people, pure democracy, get to decide. And that's the best thing. That's why we fought in so many wars to protect our democracy. So we have the right to vote. We have the right to set our own policies, as opposed to letting unelected judges. For the past 50 years, Roe v. Wade has been on the books saying that there was a so-called constitutional right to an abortion, which there's nothing in the Constitution that says that. What just happened a couple months ago with the overturning of Roe is the court said it's up to the people to decide the issue of abortion, not unelected judges. That's not democracy. That's not the way our country was formed. It's we, the people, get to decide those issues.
And again, I can't stress idea enough, of democracy,
there are
then,
some
Jasmine,
states in the United States of America that allow abortion during the 9th month of pregnancy. And if that's what they want to do, that's up to them. In Ohio, we are going to do things different, and we're going to end abortion and protect women and their children.
And what kind of democracy is it if it doesn't give its significant population the right over their own bodies, and then, it's a very skewed idea, I would certainly say. Jasmine, the Supreme Court in India has expanded the law to include unmarried women as well as part of the MTP, that is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Would you say it has given women more options to access healthcare services without having to travel the long legal route to the top court every time?
I think so. We have to understand this, that in India, abortion is still a legal right when doctors get to decide it. So we have to understand that it's not a right that you go to a clinic and you just get. You still have to fall under the categories. So we are really happy. We are happy that more and more women, more categories of women are allowed to access this service. But we still think there's no need to define, who are these people who can go access a service, because abortion should not just be seen as a medical service. It's a public health issue. And in our democracy, it's the duty of the state to ensure that its citizens have access to services. Its citizens are able to, just go ahead and access services. So we're really happy the way Supreme Court has been reading the current law, because we have to always remember, the objective of the law. The law was very clear that it was to provide services to its citizens. It was to provide that, and abortion is a special law because it talks about, freedom of choice, that
Yes.
a person has a right to decide what they would like to do with their body. And it's a very special right. So we really have to fight for it and ensure that these categories are opened up. More and more people are able to access services and ensure that, as a democracy, we protect that.
And Nidhi, the point certainly is that it is not about any, a woman perhaps entering a clinic and undergoing abortion. It has lots to do with the doctor taking a call for her. But in case of the Supreme Court, the judges, in fact, noted compassionately that the woman had also stated that she was the eldest of 5 siblings in a family of agriculturists and had a BA degree without an adequate income. This would make it difficult for her to raise the child by herself. So the circumstances are also taken in account as far as these decisions are taken in India.
Yes.
Nidhi.
Hi. One thing I would like to say, the population in India is growing, and we always wanted that wherever we are, when we are talking about laws, these should be regulated. When we are talking about MTP, when we are talking about act of reproductive, the right of reproduction or sexual health or anything, we should, the condition, as you said, that earlier five children in the family and the socioeconomic status guides it. But we are forgetting somewhere the teenage pregnancy, the pregnancies which come due to lack of awareness, lack of use of contraception, and the rights earlier. The only married women had the right to terminate the pregnancy because of failure of contraception. Government of India has given unmarried women also the liberty to right to terminate the pregnancy if they don't want it. And I congratulate Indian government. I congratulate all our patients, or the whole society, for the welcoming act of the Supreme Court and welcoming act of the amendment in the act. I would like to make it very clear. Yes, we are changing the laws, we are amending the laws, but we need to counsel our population. We need to counsel them. Social reform is also required. Patient, the person, the female going
but
to...
Jasmine, imagine a country which is 75 years old has accepted that even a woman who is unmarried can terminate her pregnancy, and she can take the entire route for, to fight it out from Delhi High Court to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court allows her, accepting fully well that yes, her status has changed from being in a consensual relationship to the relationship gone wrong. So I think that progressive judgment that is coming in from the Supreme Court of India is actually showing a direction to several democracies, and the oldest democracy, US, as well.
I think so. One of the things I've always said, that women are way ahead of the laws. I mean, whether laws, progress or not, women will take matters into their hands. And this is exactly what is happening in this case. The woman clearly said it in the court. She will not go ahead with the pregnancy. It's unwanted. And I think so that's the only thing we should focus on. Like our doctor just said that even after 50 years of this law, there are a lot of people out there who think it's illegal in this country. In our work, we have always realized in the rural India that a lot of people think abortion is illegal. It's not. It's legal. It's provided in so many different ways. So we are, it's 2022. There are women who are very clear about the paths. They are clear. It's an economic decision. They know where their career is. They know what kind of families they want. So in my head, abortion should just be a service, which doctors should be providing. State should ensure that there are good services to do that, because this is where we are heading. And state should not come in between the path of women or people who want to build their own lives or their own families. And, people have spoken. So it's time Supreme Court also agrees, High Courts also agreed to this new reality, this new women, this new families who want to define themselves.
And it's about a woman.
Highlight one thing.
Yes, it's a right to life, and right to life of a mother is perhaps more important right now, because the child is yet to be born. And that is the reason why, if you look at that judgment that came from the Supreme Court, it's being seen as landmark, because in many ways it will be deciding going ahead as to how the abortion in general will be seen. For example, one important ramification would be that survivors of rape, minors, and of course married women whose relationship status has altered during that period, will abortion be allowed between the 20 to 24 weeks period. So that is where the entire, that gamut or that space of a month is when the entire discussion and debate has been happening. Several women, young girls have approached courts in India. I'll go back to Nidhi in just a bit. But before that, Jesse, one view was that United Nations certainly, along with several other nations, could have put pressure on the US, but all that we saw was no real international action, but mere Twitter criticism. Would you also not say that after this verdict, United States soft power will be impacted, or are you of the opinion that it will have no ramifications at all? Because this has to do with human rights.
I would be surprised if it does. I think that the US is fairly immune to international pressure on these sorts of things. And I think the international community also tends to give the US a pretty wide berth on these sorts of human rights issues, frankly. There are various other issues, for example, the death penalty, where the US is very much out of step with the international community in terms of its respect for human rights, and the U.S. continues to, play a significant role and continues to represent itself as a defender of human rights. So, I think that the options may be limited for those in the international community who really want to push back against the U.S.'s internal policies and human rights decisions, unfortunately.
Jesse, I also want to understand from you this entire decision from the point of view of religion. When a powerful Western country like the US makes a decision influenced by religion at the cost of human rights, it legitimizes such actions for other countries to take as well. Because it will have the broader social impact.
The US went in this backwards direction with respect to human rights, whereas many countries are, at this moment, liberalizing their abortion laws and rolling back restrictions that have been in place for many, many years. And so I think that, again, this is an example of where the US is out of step. I do think, although it is not exclusively a religious perspective, that the US has really been privileging the perspective of one particularly powerful religious sect in the US, and that those views are driving a lot of policy across the United States with reproductive rights, LGBT rights and other sorts of issues. And I do think that this is part of a bigger cultural picture here in the ways that the US is really just retrenching on human rights.
And Michael, 45% of abortions globally are unsafe. Don't you think this overturning of the judgment will lead to a wave of illegal abortions? It will make or what we see as unsafe abortions, which will lead to higher fatality rates and other health risks.
No, look, almost there's only a handful of countries in the world that allow abortion, late-term abortions. Most countries limit or restrict abortion. And I can only hope and pray that most countries have safe health care for men and women and children in their countries. If there's an unsafe abortion happening in another country, why? Where's the UN? Why aren't they there providing better doctors? In the United States of America, we have the greatest health care in the world. That doesn't happen here in the United States, and I hope and pray it doesn't happen in India either. You guys are better than that there. But at the end of the day, the UN is very biased. They're pro-abortion, and we frankly don't care what they have to say here in the United States of America. We believe that women are better than abortion. We believe that women are better than abortion in India, too. Abortion doesn't solve any problems. It just ends the life of an innocent
Michael,
child.
I disagree with you completely. When you say that women are better than abortion, that's not really the question. It is about a woman's right over her body, and that's where the entire primary focus should be. Nidhi, you heard from two sides of the discussion that's playing out in US. Yes, go ahead. What are you saying?
I totally disagree. I was going to the point that if you are not making it legal, people will travel, people will go to different countries, and people, the females who really want it will get it done. So you are somehow increasing illegal activities. And yes, abortion is not unsafe in trend hands. When we are talking about Indian laws, the amendment, so they have said that all the government institutions have the right. All the government institutions, the abortion should be done by proper gynecologists or the people who have experience in that field. So calling blanketly that abortion is unsafe, I disagree with it. I completely
Yes,
disagree.
and it will increase health risks as well.
Yes, if you are not allowing it in a proper setup, people will go to setups where it is allowed under the cover.
Yes.
And there they may not find an expert to do that. In those cases, yes, abortion will be unsafe. But in trained hands, it's not.
All right, Nidhi, Jasmine, Mr. Michael and Jesse Hill, thank you so much for joining us. That's all from me. I'll be seeing you next weekend with another episode of A Billion Ideas.